Broadcast is live. Let's see if it shows.
Hello.
Hi, everybody.
Hello, friends.
See if it shows up. Tell us when you can see us. Wow, my comment just showed up. I made that comment like 5 minutes ago, so maybe it's... We might all just have really slow stuff tonight, but anyway.
Bit of a delay.
Right. Tell us if we're live, people, so we know, and then we'll... Oh, there a bunch of stuff came. Oh, my word. Melissa, hey.
Hey.
Yes.
There's Christy, Shay, Tara, Nadia. Hello, Nadia.
Still not live on my phone yet. Do you have your computer up?
Yeah.
Are we live on there? Because it's not live on mine.
Maya, can you see us? She says we're looking great, so I'm assuming.
Oh, yep, it's there. Okay, all right. Okay. Hi, everybody. We're just having all the internet problems right now, so yay.
Oh.
Technology. All right, Crystal.
Well, welcome everyone to the Rake Appreciation Society live show. We're so excited for tonight. This was a very fun book to read, and yeah, this is going to be fun. So we're going to have just a little bit of chit chat and announcements first, and then we'll have our discussion, and then when Eva gets here, we'll bring her on. So
sweet.
Jen, do you want to do the announcements, or do you have anything else?
Well, how about we talk about what we're reading? Because we have really exciting announcements.
Okay.
So maybe we'll give people like 5 minutes. So what are you reading right now? How about we start with that?
What am I reading? I'm reading The Bride by Julie Garwood.
Wait, are you liking it?
I am liking it a lot. This is my first Julie Garwood. This was written in 1989. Hi, Kelly. Hi, Shay. Okay, Shay's like, you're live.
Yeah.
So this is my first Julie Garwood. I am liking it a lot. I'm a little annoyed with the hero at times, but I'm like, it's still like, it's very much like got you really into the story right away, and just really, really like I want to keep reading it. Like, I don't want to put it down. I'm invested in the story. So I'm not sure how I feel about the hero yet. I mean, I like him, but then I'm also like, want to smack him. So
yeah. I feel like he's exactly your kind of hero though. So maybe it's some time. Maybe it's the style it's written into is so different from what we're like. But I don't know. He's a total alpha hole, and I love him. But he's so super into her.
Yeah.
But he's that like, I am not going to show you I'm into you. Whereas I know you like them to be a little more obsessed, like outward obsessed. But him, I like that he's just like, no, I'm not going to like this person that I was supposed to marry. And but I don't know how far you are into it, but I like that I like that his people like her so much is the thing I like. So.
I mean, I'm super, I was a little worried that I wasn't going to be able to really get into it because it was so much older, but I honestly like got into it like right away. So the storytelling aspect of it is super accessible. Like, I was really, really sucked into the story, and I think the characters are interesting. Like I said, like I talked a lot about it in today's blog that hopefully will go up tomorrow, but I mean, I'm liking it.
Would have been the best place for you to start then, because I mean, that's okay. I started with The Bride. Love it. There's a lot more coming, so I'm not worried that you're going to like it as much, but I think you might love The Secret when you read The Secret. You might.
And that's kind of what I heard. Like, I kind of thought The Secret was the one that most people liked, but I know, like, when I looked for the Goodreads reviews on here, like, it has so many 5 stars, and so I don't really have a problem with problematic elements, and I don't expect every romance to be perfect, and I love me an alpha, so we'll see.
She's a I'm not worried. The actual plot of this one, it's so good. Like, she's so good. I need to read more of her, so it might not be your favorite one by her, but I think you'll really like it. Let's see. I'm currently reading lots of things, but the main 2 things is I'm reading When He Was Wicked. I have like 100 pages left, And then I'm reading My Darling Duke by Stacey Reed. Thank you, Jessen, for derailing what I was reading, but whatever. My train is never on the track, so it's not so much like being derailed because it's more like a hovercraft and less of a train track. Like it just goes where it wants to go anyway. So yeah, well, okay, let's do it.
Okay.
You want me to do mine first, and then you can do yours?
Let's do that. Yeah.
Oh, you froze. Okay, there you're back. Okay, so our announcement at the top, we wanted to do this at the top of it because we really wanted to squeal about it a little bit. We're announcing to you guys our January and February picks, and we're so excited. Oh my God. So for January's book club, we will put the social media stuff up, of course, as soon as we're done. But for January's book club, which will be the second week in January, we're going to be doing a double pick. And we're going to be reading, hold on, they're right here. We're going to be reading these by Julia Quinn. We're going to read her Wyndham duology. And I'm so excited because we wanted to read some Julia Quinn after the Bridgerton phase is over. You might be thinking, what else should I read by Julia Quinn? Well, read this with us. So we're going to read both of these books and talk about them on, I don't know the exact date. I think it's January 15th. What's the date?
January 14th.
January 14th.
5 p.m. MST, 6 p.m. CDT.
So very, very excited. Just a brief overview if you don't know. These two books take place at the same time. You can read either book first because they're a concurrent timeline. And I don't want to say anything else than that. You can look into these, but this is a really brilliant piece of writing that Julia did, and both couples are amazing. So I'm very excited to introduce people to other Julia Quinn besides the Bridgertons, which of course I adore them, but I think a lot of people, they may not be the place to start for you. And I really want you to love Julia Quinn. So we're going to go to these. So yay. So excited. I'm
very excited about those two because I have not read anything by Julia Quinn other than the Bridgerton books. And I am still on book 3. I'm behind on that. So
yep. Those ones are fantastic. All right, Crystal, what's for February? What are we doing in February?
Okay. February is very exciting because we're going to be reading the Scandal and Scoundrel series by Sarah MacLean, all 3 books in February. So we're going to be reading these for February. We're going to be having our live show for these on February 27th for the books. So we're going to discuss the books on February 27th. And then on February 28th, we are going to have Sarah MacLean on our live show with us to chat. We're so excited. I cannot handle it. I'm so excited about that.
Half. Oh my
hour and a half. She said she'd come talk with us for an hour and a half. I can't wait. We're so excited.
Oh my God. You think we could ask her? And I was like, we better try. So yes, this was really hard to keep a secret until we got it figured out, but I was wanting to read more Sarah MacLean, and I was like, Crystal, do you want us to read Sarah MacLean? She was like, yes, I want you to read Sarah MacLean. So
I was hinting at it. I'm like, maybe we could read Sarah MacLean for one. Maybe we could read her.
And I was like, which ones do you want to read? And I wanted to do this trilogy because I know some other groups have done her first books, and I just read her Rules of Scoundrels and I loved it, and I wanted to keep going forward. I want to keep going forward in the series before doing that. But I am going to read the Bare Knuckle Bastards beforehand because obviously I want to talk with her about everything because anyway. Yeah, I know. It was tough.
I was dying to talk about it. Literally, I just could not.
Yeah. Because I've been a fan of Sarah for 1.5 years from her podcast, and I hadn't read any of her books until last month. So I was like, I wanted to read some of her books before I was like, let's have her on, because I was like, I'm pretty sure I won't hate them. I was very sure I wouldn't hate them, but I was like, I need to read these if I'm going to talk to her. So
So one of the reasons that we're announcing it now too is so that if this is, like Melissa was saying, that's kind of a lot of books in a month. If you want to get started on these now, all 5 of these, so we have from now and then we have January, so you have a long time to read all these. And then we'll also be splitting up our discussion, so we'll have the book discussion with spoilers on the 27th with just us, and then the next day Sarah McLean will be here. So
right.
Just you have time, and Sarah McLean is literally like, she's my favorite, and I when I wrote her, I was such a silly fangirl. I'm like, you're my favorite person in the whole world. Can you please come on my YouTube channel? She was so nice to me.
Yeah, we also didn't want to have to rush through talking with her because, like tonight, we're going to try to keep this so that we don't waste any of Ava's time at all. And we were like, we want to talk for like hours with Sarah. Mm-hmm. So let's not, have to do the book discussion. But speaking of book discussion, yes. See, and that was the thing too, is Crystal wanted me to pick a book. And I was like, but I want to talk about the whole trilogy because I know the Duchess is going to be a thing. Like, I was like, I know that there's just the way that I knew that the other series had like a thing. I was like, well, I don't want to just read one of her books and have to like be secretive. So let's just do the whole thing. Let's do the book club at the end of the month instead of normal and just splurge all the Sarah McLean.
We made special arrangements for Sarah McLean. Also, it's Valentine's month, so
yeah.
Yes, I'm so
we
excited.
Also won't always do such big series. Like we were like, well, let's just make it a mini readathon and you can read one a week or something. So anyway, all right. Speaking of book discussion, there we go. We gushed. We'll want to get through our questions pretty quickly. So we have time for So all right.
You want to go first? Do you want me to go first? Okay. Yeah. So we have some discussion questions. So now we're going to be talking about My Fake Rake by Eva Leigh. Now that we've gotten all of our gushing, this is a weird camera angle. So Eva Leigh. So the first question is, what did you like best about this book? So I really feel like there was a lot to really like about this book. I think probably my favorite aspect of this book was how Sebastian had the rake makeover. Like, I just loved that. Right. I thought he was just so cute. He had the glow up, and I just thought that it was adorable. I thought it was really clever and really funny. I loved the whole concept of 2 nerds falling in love. I thought it was super cute. So I think that was a little bit more unique than a lot of, I guess, what is typical in historical romance. And I thought that was really fun. I also heard after I read this, like, I didn't know this as I was reading it, that these are supposed to be based on, like, this series is supposed to be based on like 80s teen movies. And I heard a couple of different theories about this one, that it's either based, like, not based on, but around like The Breakfast Club, Pretty in Pink, or Can't Buy Me Love. And I feel like it's closest to Can't Buy Me Love, which I just thought was a freaking delight. So I liked that.
That's awesome. Okay, so for me, sorry, social media is intense. I'm sending links out. So for me, I picked 2 things. So I liked that they both had really unique careers. That is something we're definitely going to talk about more, is how unique Eva's plots are and the jobs and the careers that her characters have. Because I've read quite a few of her books at this point, and they're all like, no 2 of them has been the same. Like, there's no cookie cutter situation. And that just made it really interesting, because even though like the overall trope is something we've maybe seen before, this friends to lovers, the situation they were put in, the fact that they like met at a library, the fact that, they're both scientific brains, like, I just thought that was so unique, because usually it's like one or the other. Like the girl is really nerdy. Like, that was in like The Rules of Scoundrels. Like, there's a really nerdy girl in one of them, and that was great. But I like that they both were in that kind of career, and they were both academics. That was believable to me, how they would have been able to have a friendship. Because a lot of times in a historical, to have a friends to lovers is very difficult, unless it's like a brother's friend, or even, like a father's friend. I've read that recently. Like, it's hard to have a friends to lovers in historical, because men and women were like so divided. So it was very believable to me that, Grace is a unique woman, and she's in a place that there's usually men there. And so it makes sense that she could have a male friend who's kind of like looking out for her in this area and stuff. So
that's so true. That's a good point, that you really don't see a whole lot of friends to lovers in historicals. That was
right.
interesting. Yeah. So okay, the next question is, what did you like least about the book? So okay, I think, so the thing I liked the very least is how Sebastian white fanged her after they were together for the first time. Like, and I say white fanged, like, you know, the way
Not
he just like.
so you should explain what white fang means first, because I seen white fang and I still had to look up what you meant when you met. She's like, he totally white fanged her, and I was like, the dog? I don't know.
So like he lets her go because he believes that's best for her. Like, he doesn't try to fight for her. He just like lets her go. Like, and I didn't like I wanted him to fight for her, and that was probably honestly like my least favorite part. And I really don't like when like the man specifically leaves the woman right after sex. Like, I really struggle with that. So that was my least favorite part for sure.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I saved my thoughts on that for when we get to the hero, but I knew you were going to say that, so I picked like a different one first. So my biggest issue is that there was just miscommunication personified. Like, it was like miscommunication times 10. And I know that a lot of that is coming from both of their personalities. I know that it's coming from them, like, both being a softer person. Like, usually in a romance, you maybe have one person who's a bit more meek. Meek is the word that I use, because meek, though it may have a bad connotation, it's not meant to be a bad word. I just feel like they were both too like that. Like, Grace was really bold in a lot of ways, and I have a lot of great things to say about her. But then it felt like she wasn't bold in this one area. And it's the one area that in a romance really counts. Because if he had done what he did to me, I would have just been like, we're over. Because she's just a woman. And like, even as a friend, if you got into that situation where like, if you're my friend, you should care for me even more after we had that intimate moment. And if I had been her, I would have been like, I can't even be your friend, because if you don't respect me enough to have taken care of me in a very vulnerable moment, I'm over it. So for me, it was just miscommunication times 10, and that was the biggest issue for me. But I'll say more about him later. So yeah, that's it for me. Let's see what some of the people saying. It was a pretty slow burn. Like, I love it, but it would have loved them to get together a bit sooner. Yes. I feel that way all the time, though. Like, I understand. I understand things like being delayed. You know, I don't know. Friends to lovers, that can just happen. But I hate when one character decides what is best for another character. Yes. Totally agree. Totally agree. Especially because
that was honestly,
like, gosh, just ask her.
Yeah, that was honestly like, and especially because like, I mean, we're kind of going off the rails here, but like, he respects her intelligence so much, and on this one thing, he decided to choose what was best for her, and I don't know, like,
However,
I know.
Nope.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
To that though, I do want to point out that when she has a realization moment and she's like, you know, all I've been doing is talking about this other guy this whole time. So when he blurts that out, it's the wrong moment to blurt it out, because literally, like, you know, you just been all up in my lady bits, and then you're like, we're friends. I do understand why he's like, oh man, I'm not the one that she wants, and I just took this thing. Well, I know he didn't take it, but like in his mind, man mind, I'm like, okay, she doesn't want me, so I'm going to give her an out. And then she's too shocked in the moment to be like, what? Why are you talking about this guy anymore? But she does come to that realization later, which it was fair of him to think that. Yeah, because she was like, I want you to get hot so that this other guy will like me. So
yeah.
I mean, that is the tagline of romance, Shay. They should have had not talking about it.
Yeah,
but then would we have a book? So that is just our, anyway. So I totally get it. But I can't lie. That's what was frustrating to me is I was like, boy, what you doing? But anyway.
Okay, let's talk about the hero now. So what did we think about him? So
I know.
So honestly, like I really, really loved him. Honestly, I felt like he was so sweet and so precious, and I just adored him until until that moment. And then I was just like, man, like, and I understand, like, this is tough because you can see how, like, you know these characters by now, so you can see why they're making their decisions, but at the same time I'm like, come on, like, not right after.
Word and Word said that too, is like his anxiety is part of it too. That was something I want to bring up about him is I do love that there was anxiety representation in a man.
True. Yeah.
That is totally true. It's hard to explain that, but really can't explain why he didn't believe she liked him. Yeah. There's that.
That's great. That's a good point. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So I said I'm split down the middle with him. I loved him at the start. I love the setup of it all. I love how much he was willing to help her and how much I could feel his pining, like in each point of view from his. I could understand how he was just so enamored with her. Mm-hmm. But yet because of his anxiety, every time she's kind to him, every time she paid attention to him, he just saw it as like, oh, well, she's so nice. Like, she's so nice. And I could understand his thought process for that. But again, I agree with Crystal, and this is why I saved it for this part, is like I was with him right up until the sex scene. It alienated me to see those bits of him and then to have him hurt her with them. So that's the part that was hard for me, is not that he is anxious and not that he has that, but why it hurts so much is that I know that he's a good guy. Like, he's not a rake in any way, shape, or form. That's the point. Yeah. He's not. And so to have him hurt her at such a vulnerable moment, a man who's never hurt her in any other way, like he's never hurt her in any other way, he's only had her good in mind, to have him hurt her after she has just had that was just, I was like, you are like cold storage to me. Like, there's a serum of thank you for you. I was like, and then, and this is going into my like spoiler point at the end, he could have redeemed it for me if when he got to that ship, when he climbed on there, if he had said, I love you, if he had just blurted it out. But what does he do? He's like, well, how do you feel about me? He feels about me. And I'm like, no, this is time. You still made her say it. Like, oh, that was the last bit for me, because I was like, he's making a grand gesture. He almost drowned. And then he's like, oh, but do you like me? Sebastian, that is over. You have climbed the ship and got in. You need to make your declaration, because he still made her say it. And I know maybe that's what has like an empowerment moment. Like, he's still going to put it in her hands. But for me, I was like, you still made her say it. I was upset. But that's
and but again, like I agree with you on that. But again, I feel like it's just such a Sebastian thing to do, you know, like to physically do this thing where it's dangerous and his life is in danger. But when it comes to really how he feels about her, he's like, I don't know, you know. So
yeah,
it was. But I did love the grand gesture.
First, though, I really needed him to say it first, because she's already been hurt by that once. Like, yeah. True.
Yeah. That's very true.
That's a personal decision. Hey guys, I know you all love this. We'll get into more of it as we go. Like, I was so swoony over him for so much of it, but there are just certain things that in my specific historical romances that I need for it to be satisfied. So there's nothing wrong with this story. It is so cute. It's adorable. There is so many things to love, but at the end of the day, like, I need the man to flip his switch at some point, even if he's a cinnamon roll, even if he is a lover. I need him to flip his switch and be like, girl, you're mine. I'm carrying you off this ship over my shoulder. Let's go. And that's not everybody's style. It's not. It's okay. It's okay. But I needed him to flip his switch for it to be for me. So
See, and I feel like I didn't necessarily need him to like flip his switch that hard, but I wanted him to just like put it out there and be bold about how he felt. Like that's what I would have liked. Like that's the point. When you get to that point, you get on the ship, you've got this woman that you love, you know she's the one for you. You lay it all out on the line, and if she says you're not for her, then oh well, at least you tried, man. You know. So I mean,
Laura has a comment to your white fanging.
What'd she say?
I like missed it. Now it went up. She's like, but he didn't think he was hurting her. He was trying to give her an out. Exactly.
I know. And but that's the whole thing about White Fang is he's letting her go because he believes it's for her own good. So I know his intentions were good, but I just wanted to just shake him because like and I feel like maybe that goes into play with like all of the other aspects of his personality, but like yeah, that was
next one. How do you feel about the heroine? Sorry.
Okay, no, go. You go first this time.
I love the heroine. I'll rant about her a little bit. I love her. I love that she has a cool like interest. I like that it was insects, which is so fascinating. I like that she was really clever. I like that she was bold in a lot of aspects. I mean, her only like fault or kind of the setup of the story is that she's interested in the wrong guy, but like that's not a fault. There are a lot of things to love about the guy she's interested in. He's someone she thinks that their dreams align very well, and they do. Like that's what ends up happening is this guy is like, and not too different of a man than Sebastian, to be honest. Let's be real. Like there's a lot about them that is the same, except this guy, he sees a girl who matches him and he's like, yeah, we'll get married and go on this trip. Like we'll be so successful together. And I mean, honestly, like the thing that is a detractor to me is that she picks Seb. I would have picked the other
guy. No.
He was offering her dreams and was literally put up or shut up. And he put up. He was like, I'll take you. So anyway, yes, I love that she's a STEM girl before STEM was a thing. And I love Grace, like really. And that is, again, something that I'll rave about with Eva is her heroines are great. I've loved every heroine that I've read so far. Yeah, I loved Grace. She was fantastic. Like them both. It was a slow fall out and love in the switch. Yes. Yeah, she doesn't switch to Sebastian until like a bit far in. I mean, the magical night in the barn, obviously. Yeah. I loved the like first time where like they're talking through the stacks of the books. Like that's very Breakfast Club. Like that must be the one that's Breakfast Club. I love that. That's adorable. Who doesn't want to meet a guy at a library? That's true, but that was the plan. She was okay with the guy only liking her when Seb liked her. You know, if that guy had seen her in a barn, we might have liked him.
Okay. Awesome. So my thoughts. I loved the heroine. I honestly really loved her. The thing that I thought was so interesting about her too was like watching her, how confident she was when it was about science or when it was about like anything intellectual. She was like this confident, completely able to talk about things that might be awkward in other settings. Like I think there was a comment in here. Somebody said that how they could talk about these maybe taboo topics, but when it was science, they could talk about them openly. And I thought that was really cool. So I loved seeing that like contrast of how confident she was in that area. But then when it comes to like feeling things and she's trying to work out her feelings for Sebastian, like she's so vulnerable and unsure. And I just really liked that. I don't know. And I also really loved how even in the end, when she didn't, this is a spoiler too. We're just talking all spoilers now. Even when she didn't end up with Sebastian and she chose not to be with that guy, like she just decided, no, I'm not, like she didn't settle, even though it would have been a good situation for her. She didn't settle for him. So I love that about her too.
And who's to say if they moved to where they were moving to, that love wouldn't have come along for them. I'm just saying.
You shipped that guy? No, I did not.
No, I didn't. I'm just stirring it up. But
I know.
there's no faults to that guy besides that they weren't like making out all the time, you know?
Yeah.
She didn't write where like he was secretly after something. Like they were both wealthy people. They both had similar interests. It would have worked out, you know? So, it's good stuff. And Morta said she was starting to think of him as more than a friend. It could have helped. Yes, that's true. That's true. It is an equal fault party. Like it definitely is.
Okay. Next question is, what did you think of the romance overall?
Oh, is that the next question? Yes, it is.
I think so. Okay.
I thought it was a plot thing. I don't know. I think I kind of said it. I said this in a message to you when I got done with it, is that, I mean, it was a cute story, but I wasn't, at a certain point, I wasn't rooting for them anymore. And I just was like, okay, kids, get it together. I thought when they were together and have moments, like I was told about what a like sexy, dirty talker Sebastian was. And I was like, how is he not saying anything any other times? Like he doesn't, I don't know. So I wasn't super rooting for this romance, as I said. So.
Okay, yep. Let's see. Spirits. I liked the other character. I did too. What was his name? The Duke?
Yep.
Ruthersby? I loved him. I wonder if he's in future books.
He's the Duke.
Oh.
Yeah. What I Do for the Duke, the second one.
Okay.
Yeah. I haven't read that yet, but I looked through it.
Yeah. 10 out of 10 for me. Any science aspects are to tell a story. That's awesome. Ruthersby is book 2. Okay, cool. So the romance. I liked the romance. I thought this book was overall very sweet, and I thought it was very tender, and I like a slow burn. Like I really kind of like, I like a slow burn. I'm not gonna deny it. I really do. But even with this one, I felt like it was just drug out a little bit too long. Like but it didn't make me hate it. I did enjoy the romance overall. I felt like it was really honestly really sweet. So I liked the romance. It wasn't a 5-star romance for me, but I still really liked it. I thought it was cute and sweet.
I said for me, I'm kind of combining this with the like would I recommend it question, because I know that there are very specific scenarios where I will find a reason to suggest this to people. It's just not one that I'm like is going to come to my mind first when I think of something. But there are, I make really specific trope videos. I would put this in like heroines with a unique job. I definitely would do. I would put this in made men, or like heroes who are working class men. I would put this in cinnamon roll heroes. So there are definitely places that I would put it. I just, again, this is completely personal because I can see how much some of you guys love this one, is that I have a specific man type. And if you're a romance reader, we all have our specific man type. So that's why for me, I see all the positives of this book and all the things that are lovable about it, but it's just not going to be on my, reach for shelf, because I need my man to make me angry. And that's so sweet. Well, looks like she's ready to join us.
Let's see.
Send her the link.
Okay, Jen, you want to carry on a conversation?
Yeah. Well, let's keep having you guys. She's gonna resend the link. So, I read a bunch of other books by Eva too. So since we're going to be starting our author questions, I'll maybe tell you some of the things I did like. I also read her Wicked Quills of London series, and I loved them, particularly the third one, which is called Temptations of a Wallflower. This is about so the Wicked Quills of London are all about female authors in some way. There's one who writes gossip column. There's one who is a playwright. And then this one, she writes erotic novels. And there happens to be a minister or a vicar who his father is really doesn't like this lady. And he wants his son to find out who this woman is and destroy her reputation so she doesn't write these naughty little books anymore. Well, it just so happens that the vicar has been reading these books for a long time, and he really likes the books, and he thinks that this author is like not all the bad things that they're saying about her. And so anyway, so they end up meeting, not knowing who each other is, and they legit fall in love with each other. And he ends up finding out like who she is, and now he doesn't know what to feel about it. But I really, really love this book. I love that the man was reading, literally, he was a vicar reading romance novels. I liked that him being a vicar, that he was like not placed in like a bad light, because I feel like a lot of times when there's religious figures, especially in historical romance, they can be put in kind of a seedy light. Well, the thing is that vicars and stuff, it was usually a job. Like this hero, his name is Jeremy. Like he's a vicar because he's a third son. And so his father has an heir, and he has a son who's a lawyer. And then he needs a son who's a vicar because he wants his sons in specific places. And so Jeremy isn't necessarily a vicar because he's like, smite the evildoers. Like he's a vicar because he enjoys helping people, and it's a job. And anyway, it was absolutely divine, and I loved it so much. So this was my favorite Eva Leigh that I've read. And then, is she ready to join us, or am I?
She is, yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Should we go?
Yeah, you can. I'll rave about her too.
All right. So here's Eva. We're going to bring you on. Okay. All right. We'll try not to scream in your ears. Hello.
You know, if you want to scream positive things, that could drown out negative voices in my head. So
lots of good things to say.
Lots of good things. Yes.
I was just
Thank you so much
because I'm obsessed with this. But sorry, we'll intro you. I'll calm down. I'm so excited you're here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eva, for joining us. We loved this book. We loved the chance to read more works from you. We're super impressed with you. I know Jen went on a real binge of your work and has just loved all of it. So I'm going to let Jen lead this discussion.
Am I? Oh, where are my questions at? So now I'm sweating all of a sudden.
I'm sorry.
No, you didn't tell me I was asking questions. Could you maybe just kind of like start with telling us how you got into writing? Maybe you didn't start with historicals, wherever that you started at, and then how you got to the where you are now. It's a broad.
Okay, so I started writing. Can you hear me okay? Is the volume all right and stuff like that? Okay, I want to make sure because of the headphones. I started writing basically when I was a little kid. My mom was a preschool teacher, so she taught me how to read. And so hi everybody. Pretty soon after I became literate, maybe even before that, I started writing. I even like dictated stories and stuff like that. So I was writing since I was like a child, but I didn't really, and like some of my early forays into writing were, I'm a Gen Xer, so like I'm firmly I grew up in the 80s, and like I wrote fan fiction before I knew that it was called fan fiction about the band Duran Duran.
That's amazing.
I love it.
So, which is why calling my this series The Union of the Rakes was just kind of like my big kind of shout out to this very formative influence on my life, because I watched a ton of MTV back when they were actually playing music videos, and so I was writing like Duran Duran fan fiction and all other kinds of stories and stuff like that, and like getting in yay Shay, and I was writing all kinds of stuff. But like in high school, a friend of mine, she started loaning me her mother's romance novels. Like her mom would read them and then give them to her, and then she would give them to me. And like as soon as I started reading them, I'm like, I love these. It's not long after you start to read romance that a lot of people start to want to write romance. And most of the ones I liked the most were historical romance, because there was always something about the historical time period that I found really fascinating and interesting. So I started writing romance basically in high school, but like I went through like undergrad and grad school, and I went through all these different permutations into trying to understand like who did I want to be and what did I want to do. And I went into and I'd been writing and kind of secretly writing romance, and not really expanding on it. Like I wrote probably like a third of my first romance novel in high school, and it was like a woman who captains a pirate ship, and she captures the ship that the wealthy pampered hero is on, and she sells him into indentured servitude. So that kind of gives you a sense as to kind of like where the narratives that I was already thinking about were going at the time. And this was like in the 80s when there was a lot of the forced seduction kind of stuff. So it was not the era of the punishing kisses. And so I was already sort of kind of feeling a little constrained by that notion. So trying to push back against that. What's that? Yes.
Especially by pirates.
Especially by pirates is good. And then I went to like grad school, and I was thinking, and I was starting to work on a PhD in English literature, but I entered a fiction writing, like a short fiction writing contest, and I won it. And then I started getting attention from agents. They're like, hey, do you have a manuscript? I'm like, no. So I went and I left my PhD program with an MA. I went and I got an MFA, which is not a requirement for writing romance or writing at all. You don't need an MFA, but that's what I decided to do. And it was a pretty, like one of those, it's a very fancy MFA program, and very prestigious, and it produced a lot of notable American writers, mostly American. And, but while I was there writing these like sort of Raymond Carver-esque short stories, which is like what they were really into, I didn't even know who Raymond Carver was until I went to this program. So all of this stuff about like the American fiction, I'm like, I don't know. My undergrad thesis was about a play from the 17th century. So like I was completely kind of not conversant in that world. While I was at this program, I was also secretly writing romance. I got my degree, I left, I finished the program, and eventually I had like some day jobs. And while I was doing that, I was writing in the morning, submitting my stuff to agents, eventually got an agent, eventually sold the book, yada, yada, yada. I guess 15 years later, I'm still writing romance. So, and that brings me here.
I love it. That's awesome.
By the way, I wanted to show you my sweatshirt because tonight is the first night of Hanukkah.
Yes.
So
I love it. That is fantastic.
So anyway, okay, back to our regularly scheduled program.
Right. Okay.
Okay, so that's basically kind of how it happened. And I was always writing, historical romance is always the thing that really was the most intriguing to me. I found the world that we lived in right now not that interesting, and I found there were lots of stories that could be mined from the historical time period, particularly for me, women doing things in male-dominated, which is essentially everything, field. So that's where the first book I ever had published was about a Lady X's Cowboy, which was written by me as Zoe Archer. Mm-hmm. That was the heroine is like a wealthy society widow who inherits a brewery from her husband's. Thank you, Laura. Her husband passed away, and one of his assets was a brewery, and he left it to her thinking probably she was going to sell it, but instead she takes it over and starts running it. And so and people like trying to pressure her out of running a business. So that was kind of like my first published romance. And the second one I wrote was about a woman in the 18th century who was a botanist. This was back in the aughts, so the world of romance publishing was pretty different. You could write single title books without thinking that they were going to be a series.
Sure.
And now here we are with you.
So speaking of, since we were kind of talking about where you like started with reading, and I also had a best friend. It was her grandmother's Harlequin books that her grandma would get the big stack of them, and my friend would read them and then bring me like 3 of them the next day, and I'd be like, "Oh, this one's cute, but do you have another one that's like this story?" So that's fun. That's what happened to you too. Like, definitely was doing it under my parents' noses because they, which is funny because my mom read historical romance, but she would have she had boxes of Joanna Lindsay in the basement, and I only wish I knew what I had. My aunt said. But anyway. Do you remember what your first historical romance that you read was?
Unfortunately, I don't remember the specific book. I have a horrendous, a very porous memory. It doesn't retain a lot. which is why all of my heroines have these very specific professions, and I can remember nothing about how they actually function. So how does a printing press work? Eleanor knows. I don't know. Those kinds of things. But I remember some of the books that I read were like Judith McNaught and Jude Devereaux and Joanna Lindsay and Iris Johansson. I mean, those are the those are the authors that I and then like in the 90s, I really got into Mary Jo Putney. She was one of my favorite historical romance authors. So it kind of evolved as time went on. But yeah, those were those like Judith McNaught and Jude Devereaux, I think, were two of my favorites. Oh, and Lavrell Spencer also.
Oh my heck, Lavrell Spencer was like my first historical romance I ever read when I was like 15.
Oh, nice.
It's so fun how those things are coming back around, because I feel like now we call them old school historical romances, but they're like, it's there because I mean, I just read King of Dreams this year. I've just read Julie Garwood this year, and
Julie Garwood, totally.
Like, just, oh my gosh, these are fantastic. But that's awesome. I love that. So here's another question we were having fun coming up with some of these because they're really interesting. Because like this is our Rake Appreciation book club, who is your favorite rake that you've read by someone else, and maybe your favorite that you've written?
Well, this is a little esoteric. I mean, I loved St. Vincent from Lisa Kleypas's Devil in Winter. Super awesome. And also in Shauna Abbey had a series called the Draken series, I can't remember if it was like in the aughts, where it was about dragon shifters, but it was historical. And there was a character in one of them who appeared in several of the novels. His name was Zane. And if you can find these books, I think I might even, hang on a second.
Please do show me. I'm going to write. That's the best part.
Oh, man. Damn it. I seriously thought I had it, but damn. Anyway, but I just stepped on my cat. So sorry, cat.
You didn't mean to call the people.
I remember at one of the RT Romantic Times conventions. Yeah, Kelly, you should check this series out. Shauna Abbey, A-B-E with a little accent on it. You should read the series. She's a beautiful writer, and I hope she's still out there. She did some YA, like some paranormal YA also. But I saw her at RT one year, and it was like, we were on the same row, because at the time I was writing as Zoe Archer, and like I was talking to her for a second, and I'm like, you know how people talk about their fangirl moment, and like I'm talking to her like, oh, I'm a professional, and then I'm like, I love Zane, yeah, and then we're like bring away. But
I love that.
He's like a thief. He grew up on the streets, and so he's a thief, and I dug that about him.
I feel like I've heard that from so many romance authors who, because so many of you like obviously read it before you wrote it, and there's always those fun stories of like getting to meet the people that are your heroes, and then you turn into a fan too. Like that's.
We start out as readers first, for the most part.
Absolutely.
Most of us start out as readers, and so that's when I remember for my series, the Blades of the Rose series that I also wrote as Zoe Archer, was the historical paranormal adventure series, kind of like in the vein of Indiana Jones and the Mummy. Mary Jo Putney gave me a blurb for my book, and I was like, I couldn't, and then I met her at a party, and I was just like, Jesus H. Christ, like what the hell? This is insane.
You read something I wrote? Oh my!
And you liked it enough to talk about it to people? Oh my God! So I was that was astonishing to me.
That's awesome. Okay, so getting into a couple questions more about your writing. So this one, I'm proud of this question. I'm smart sometimes. You write a lot of hardworking ladies in your historical romances. What has been your favorite job for them to have, or the most interesting career to write for them?
That's interesting. I'm going to try to narrow it down. I mean, because I've done a lot. I've done like linguists. I've had what else? I had inventors. Yeah, because I had like in a steampunk series I wrote as Zoe Archer. I had a woman who was an inventor. Gosh, they're so cool. I love the scientist heroine like Grace, who's a herpetologist. What's my favorite? Golly, who says that? I
well, maybe when you're researching it, I'm sure whichever one you're writing is your favorite at the time, but like, what was the most fun to, for that?
I mean, like the deep dives that I get to do are really fun, because the thing about, like, say with Grace and herpetology is it's not only that I have to research things about herpetology, but what would somebody in 1817 know about herpetology?
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Right. So it was like somebody in 1850 is going to have a completely different basis of knowledge than somebody who's at the earlier years. In fact, 1817 was the first year that the term herpetology was coined. So it's like the fact that, like, there's things that I had to know. Like, I was in contact with somebody at the Natural History Museum in Los Angeles, and I'm like, what do you do if you can't heat a terrarium? Because because I didn't have the technology at the time to heat terrariums. So how could you keep specimens? Well, you can't. So, like, Grace doesn't have any specimens because there's no way to keep them alive. So, and obviously, I also felt that she would probably think that it was unethical to keep a lizard or an amphibian in a terrarium. So, like, that kind of thing. Like, when I learn these sorts of bits and pieces and they inform how the story evolves, that's always just kind of really fascinating to me. And I also really enjoyed writing Lucia, the heroine from Dare to Love a Duke. I think that's what it was. I've written a few, so I'm trying to remember. But Dare to Love a Duke, where she manages the Orchid Club, which is like the kind of like the consensual mass sex society, I think. And I really liked having this heroine who was kind of like, she had been a sex worker. She's still kind of part of that world, and she's okay with it. The people she surrounds herself with are okay with it. It's sort of like, it was a sex positive take, which I know existed, although there was a lot of sex slut shaming, but like, sort of posit that and put that out there into the world. I really enjoyed writing that character.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I definitely felt that a lot for the book I really want. In this book, The Education. This book is amazing. I've been waiting to pull that one up the whole time because Crystal gave that to me as a present, and I smiled the whole way through that book, just everybody's story, but particularly since I knew I'd be talking to you, I was like, wow, this is awesome.
Yeah, I've heard several people say that your story in there, Eva, is their favorite. Like,
oh,
they
really?
just
Wow.
loved it. Like,
thank you. Thank you, Dana. Also, there's so many heavy hitters. I mean, everybody's stories in that anthology they're just amazing. And so it's like making sure that, like, I didn't feel like the weakest link. I mean, it's like, Sarah Simone, for God's sake, like, but it's like, I'm really glad that people have been readers, and you guys have been responding to it, and that you liked it.
Well, how did this come about then? That's one of my questions too. This is perfect time. So, like, how did this come about for you, and where did it come from? Because it's amazing.
Thank you, Nadia. So this, how they were talking about how, like, during the pandemic, Shakespeare wrote King Lear. How they were sort of like, okay, so this is Joanna Shoop's King Lear. Like, she basically was sort of she was sort of mulling over this idea. There's all of these authors writing these really great sort of taboo pushing kind of erotic or high heat romances out there. And she was like, why, I'd love to see more of this in the historical field. So she actually called me, and we were sort of talking about it, and she was sort of thinking about it. This is, like, in our pandemic, as we're sort of sitting here stuck at home. And and initially we started to think about, we'll co-write something, and should we come up with a new name, and blah, blah, blah. And then ultimately Joanna's like, why don't we just make this an anthology? And then that, then we can bring bring other people in. And I was like, this makes perfect sense. And so, like, emails started going out to people, to Nicola Davidson and Adriana Herrera and Sierra Simone, and then people just got on board, and it just all kind of came together really nicely. And what I found really interesting about it is we all had this sort of central conceit, which was the Duke I'd like to, and there were a few sort of like daddy Dukes, and then there was mine, which is a little different. But one thing that we all seem to have in common in this, without even consulting with each other, was a very specific sex positive viewpoint, and not only that, but also balancing power dynamics like that. In every single story, we were all, without consulting with each other, this is all something that we all wanted to address, and I found that really fascinating as I was reading through everybody else's stories, and as I've been seeing the reviews and stuff like that, the people are picking up on that, you know, and Maureen Lanker in her EW review.
I definitely noticed that. So that's crazy that was not a plan, because that was what I was going to ask is like, how did you, like, you just picked the Duke and you each wrote your own story about the Duke? Like, it wasn't any, like, more into that, or?
What we did is we had like a spreadsheet where we said like, because where we sort of like talked about like what our very basic like plot line is going to be, I think, just to make sure that there wasn't going to be any severe overlap in terms of like, oh, I call dibs on that kind of situation. But, yeah, totally. And so I like, that was it. We basically had like, we also like, we had to write our blurbs really early. So, which was, you know, just a couple lines about it. And that's all we knew about each other's stories really until, you know, they started getting copy edited, and then we would upload them and read each other's stuff. So it was kind of like, it was all very, we had this sort of mind meld that we didn't even know about that this was going to happen. So I thought that was pretty great.
That's fantastic. that is such a cool, that's my favorite pandemic story right there. That's just fantastic.
Anything good to come out of this.
Yeah. Have you done self-publishing before? Do you have a self-published line as well, or was this the kind of first time you guys have dived into that, or for you, I mean?
Well, the irony is, no, so I got the rights back to Lady X's Cowboy, and it is available for purchase, I think, on Amazon. As far as original self-published work, I was basically, so back up. So I wrote this book for Hallmark called A Timeless Christmas, and I wrote that as Alexis Stanton. And there was always this possibility that it was going to be turned into a film. That was kind of one of the things, is that Hallmark wanted to create a publishing line that could potentially be made into film.
Okay.
So I found out that A Timeless Christmas in 2019 was going to be optioned, which means they were kind of developing it. It was in development. So they were thinking about possibly turning it into a film. And then time went by, and I was like, okay, it's probably not going to happen. But what I should do if people read this book is I'm going to write my own holiday story as Alexis Stanton, A Sweet Holiday. So basically this summer, I wrote An Education in Pleasure, and then I wrote my Hallmark style sweet holiday romance called Operation Holiday Matchmakers by Alexis Stanton. So I went from like super hot, I'm screwing this 21-year-old Duke, to a very sweet kisses only. And it was fun. It was a challenge, but I felt like I was able to do both of those. But I'm like, I contain multitudes. I can do all of these things. So thank you, Sydney. Thank you. So if you want to read more, there's Operation Holiday Matchmakers, which is set in a fictitious California town, and it's about two rival matchmakers who have to team up and save their town for the holiday season.
We got a lot of Christmas lovers on this, so
awesome. I tried to make it a little more inclusive. I myself am Jewish, so I tried to make it sort of just a holiday. But,
are you? I wouldn't have guessed.
I know, weird, right? That was my only other self-published work. So fortunately, with the Dilf anthology, Sierra Simone, Adriana, and Nicola were all very experienced when it came to self-publishing. I know nothing. So when it came to the logistics, about like not just like the technical aspects. We had to get the cover, we had to, you know, hire the editors, we had to upload all the material, and then there's of course like the financial component, like all of these things which are very intimidating to me.
Right.
Fortunately, we had really experienced people on top of that, so I'm like, I'm just gonna sit here and look cute, you know, and here's our story.
Well, and write a super sexy novel about teaching some business. So that's what was going on. Yeah. Was this a stock photo, or did like they pick a model and stuff? Because
okay, so it's
stills, that's for sure.
it's two images. It's like the neckcloth. Well, it's three images actually. It's a composite. Okay. So there's the background, there's the neckcloth down, and then there's and we kind of through the magic of Photoshop and some very talented people, we put them together. And actually, the funny thing is, like the cover model, I posted something about it on Instagram, and the cover model, who's this guy from Poland, he like liked it and stuff, and I'm like, wow, okay, don't do this. I don't know, you know.
That's great.
That's awesome.
Well, because I know it's a mix. Because I know like Sierra Simone, a famous story of hers that it's stock photos for her new Camelot series. The first two are stock photos, and I'm like, they're so beautiful.
They're so stunning.
Yeah. That is awesome. I had wondered that because I mean, to be fair, I hadn't like researched, but I wondered if this was one of your first self-published, because I've read some things by the others, and I was like, that's really cool that everyone was combined to do this, because it definitely was a great treat. 2020 owes us some things, and I feel like that book was a great treat.
As our country is being rended apart, we can always take comfort in some fuckable dukes.
That's right. Do you have any dukes by other authors that are DILFs for you? Because I made a video about DILFs, and I was like, I want to know what some people's DILFs are. So.
Oh, that's interesting. I think Tessa Dare has done some pretty hot DILFs.
For sure.
Julianne Long has also done some great DILFs, and of course we're going to get the hottest DILF this Christmas with Bridgerton.
He's a very hot DILF.
Yes.
Of all the changes for that series, I'll say it off the mountaintop. I was like, I have no problem with Simon. Anyone who has problems with Simon can fuck right off, because he's like, other things I'm wondering about, but not about him. I'm very excited.
No, if you're going to take issue with the sleeves.
Yeah. Netflix, did you really have okay, well, all right. Okay, sorry, getting distracted. Dukes would get me very excited, obviously. So yeah, we wanted to turn focus back to this book just a little bit. What gave you the idea for Grace and Sebastian's story? I know you talked a little bit about like the 80s and the theming of that, but where did like Sebastian come for you, and and like Grace and stuff? Where'd you get them from?
Well, I mean, I drew from several 80s movies in terms of the inspiration. Obviously, there's the Breakfast Club kind of framing device, but then there's also sort of like, there was Some Kind of Wonderful, which was a friends to lovers story where there's like almost like a love triangle. And then there's also Can't Buy Me Love, which is like a fake dating, which features the infant Patrick Dempsey. He's so young in that movie, it's crazy, but we all were back then. And then also Weird Science, just kind of like this idea of like building the perfect woman. And I was like, I would really like to and there are nerds in that, right? In Weird Science, they're all in all of the iterations that are talking about, there's a nerd or an outsider. And so I was sort of thinking about that, and I was also thinking about inverting the makeover story, because we're so indoctrinated in this notion of like, okay, here we go, and it's like,
take off
the glasses. Right, exactly. Well, and that's why I put that scene in there, because we've had so many times, like, and then in the 90s, it's funny because people are like, oh, this reminds me of She's All That, and I'm like, well, these tropes have shown up, for a long time now, Cinderella, Pygmalion makeover kind of stories. Right. And so now I've got my main.
I know, I was like, you did it.
Pantene.
I love it.
So I wanted to invert that. and I wanted to see what it was like if we took the nerdy dude and turned him into the hot one, you know. And I wanted to make sure in that Grace is never the one being pressured into changing. And ultimately, it's not about Sebastian changing. It's more about like him sort of kind of becoming comfortable with himself, and that because Grace and Sebastian get to spend this much time together, it's not that it's because he's doing it as the rake, it's that they're actually getting to be together for this amount of time and recognize in each other that they're the person that they want. She doesn't really fall for the rake Sebastian as much as she just like recognizes that finally it's like, oh, Sebastian's been here all the time. And and also Grace recognizes that she didn't see Sebastian. Thank you, Laura. I also liked the idea that she recognizes that she didn't see Sebastian the way that Mason Fredericks didn't see her, and so she recognizes that she made the same mistake that was plaguing her, and so they kind of come together over that. So that was kind of like my initial idea for how I was thinking of what this was going to be, and I wanted to make them scientists or nerds. And anthropology is an extremely problematic field. I understand that it's been a tool of oppression for a long time. And I kind of wanted to have Sebastian recognize that, and that like his intention of working in the field of anthropology was to sort of help undo some of that damage. And then also, I wanted Grace to have a sign, like her field of study wasn't going to be cute. You know, people, you know, and like botany is often a science that they assign to women, and it was even at the time, because it was like, oh, you're just fussing about the flowers, it's okay. But and also some women were in entomology, which is study of insects. But I was like, you know, people have phobias or the dislikes or about reptiles and amphibians, and I kind of wanted to give that to her for that very reason. And then she has her explanation that, like, you know, they don't respond or look the way we think that they're supposed to, and so we think that they don't have the feelings or emotions that we want. They're not soft and cuddly, and so we think they don't feel, but they do feel. They do have emotions and experiences, and so she wants to protect that.
Nice.
Okay. I love that. I love that so much. Awesome.
Well, I just have two more quick questions, and then if you want to start asking some questions for her, we have maybe. Do you have a strict cutoff for you so that we make it?
Not really. No. Okay. It's almost sunset, which means it's time to light the menorah. But I feel like I would rather, like, it's important. My deity feels that it's important for me to spend time with you, and they understand that when I light my menorah, it's okay.
Good. So. Well, I just want to make good use of your time, so I want to make sure you. But I want them to ask some questions. But I just have two more quick from my list here. So one of them is maybe first, what some of your favorite romances this year have been, whether historical or other, by other authors. What are some of your favorites? And then we'll start with that question. But I have one more.
Okay, so this year's been really great. My editor edited two of my favorite books this year, which were Get a Light. Well, no, I think it was Take a Hint, Danny Brown, and The Worst Best Man. So Take a Hint, Danny Brown is by Talia Hibbert, and The Worst Best Man is by Mia Sosa. And I really loved both of those books. And I actually haven't been reading nearly as much historical romance as I used to, because I kind of want to keep, like, you know, the brain space clear, and which is hard because I really absolutely love it. But I think I've been reading a lot of like contemporary romances, and those were two that I remember really enjoying quite a lot.
Awesome. And then the last one for me is, what do you have coming up next? What are some future projects and books that you have coming next?
Well, in February, I think it's February 23rd, McCameron's book is coming up. So, and that's the third book in the Union of the Rake series. And if you've read the next book in this series after My Fake Rake, which is Would I Lie to the Duke, you'll see that McCameron is in that, as is his heroine, who shows up at Noel's estate at Carriford. And the hint as to what movie McCameron's book is based on, you can find in his name and in his heroine's name, Crystal, do you know what I'm talking about?
I think so. Yeah.
What is it?
Is it Ferris Bueller?
Yes, it is.
Yes. I'm so happy.
Mrs. Ferris is a woman, and she's an older woman. She's a widow who's 46. No coincidence I was 46 when I wrote that book. No, it is a coincidence. It's completely coincidence. And also the other sort of main movie that it sort of takes its inspiration from is, I don't know if you remember this movie from the 80s called The Sure Thing with John Cusack and Daphne Zuniga, but it's a road trip story. And he's kind of like the wild, crazy, loose one, and she's kind of uptight. And so I reversed that gender-wise, but it's a road story. So it's like a road story, older man, younger woman. He's a grumpy dom. There's just one bed. I mean, there's like,
Ooh.
You don't have to be familiar with 80s movies and 80s music, but if you are, you're going to find a lot of things in Waiting for a Scot Like You that I hope you will enjoy.
Love
So
it.
that's
sounds
next.
fabulous.
And I'm currently writing a new series called The Last Chance Scoundrels for Avon, which I think the first book will be out in 2022, which is weird to contemplate. Who knows if the world will exist by then, but and so that'll be coming out probably in spring. And that one is about three men who are given an ultimatum by their families that they have to marry respectable women or else they don't get a dime. And then I get to play with the concept of what's a respectable woman.
Sure. I love it.
So that's what's coming up next.
Nice.
Yeah.
Looks like Mitchie Reads Fiction had a question. You see that
Okay.
one?
Yeah.
Did I have to study European hierarchy to write my book? Okay, so you definitely need to be like, Mitchie, thank you for that question. You definitely need to have some understanding as to how the nobility works, for sure. And you also need to know like who was on the throne. There's a lot of things again, it's like there's a certain amount that I have like stored up in my head, and there's a lot of stuff that I have to keep returning to. I mean, English law is really complicated, and so I'm constantly turning to other historical romance authors. I'm like, how does that, like inheritance and things like that. So you definitely need to know it, because if you don't, the readership is very knowledgeable, and they're going to be like,
right,
that's ridiculous. And I remember watching Enola Holmes, and it was like there was some bonkers stuff with how titles worked in that, and I remember some people on Twitter were like it ruined the movie for them because
right,
the titles were all wrong.
Some of that stuff, I'm like, aren't you paying people to do that? Like, that's the thing. It's one thing if if a self-pub author who's having to do all their research on their own, or even, like if you're doing all that on your own and you mess it up, but like you have people, like I'm sure there's some young research assistants who would do it as an intern if you would ask them to.
Right. I mean, there's got to be like there's a certain amount that your copy editor, your editor, your copy editor, and your proofreader are going to catch. And then there's things that you don't, and things just slip through, so it's hard to say, but like something like that, where like the titles were all messed up, was just kind of like, that's not that hard to find out. There are some things that are hard to find out, and that's not that hard. And somebody should have been like, hey, let's check this out.
Right.
But they were interested in other things, like Henry Cavill's jawline.
Right. Well, and people, like,
hard not to be interested in that.
Because as a reviewer, which I have no research, like I have done no research into it, only have my extensive knowledge of reading books. People will ask me like what the difference is, and I have a couple like viewers who are from the UK who I'll be like, hey, do you know the answer to this? Because I don't know, and they'll tell us. And then I made a really like I'm not saying this to put myself forward because it was trash, but like I just pulled up Wikipedia and was like, hey, let's walk through the British peerage. This is what Wiki says. And so it's like, I don't know, this stuff is out there. So obviously it's been around for thousands or hundreds of years, right? So anyway.
There's an acronym called, there's an acronym, Do Men Ever Visit Boston? And that will tell you the peerage hierarchy. So it's Duke, Marquis, Earl, Viscount, Baron.
Yeah.
And I refer to that a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see.
Okay.
Laura has
Wanna
one.
do Laura's? Okay.
Yeah, that's a cute one.
That is a cute question.
What's the movie from the 2010s that you loved? I really liked Spider-Man Into the Spiderverse. That was so good, and
That was
I
fun.
really liked, and I liked this. I liked the latest Spider-Man iterations with Tom Holland. I think those are both of those films have been really good. And I liked Black Panther and Wonder Woman. And I know that I've seen other movies besides comic book adaptations, but I'm drawing blank right now.
Those are some great ones, though. Of the
Yeah.
comic book movies, you named some of the best ones. So
Those are fantastic. Yeah.
supposed to get 1984 for Christmas. Let's hope they don't move it again.
I really want to see it. I mean, it's such an intersection for me of so many things that obviously 1984. I was 11. It was a very formative year for me.
That's crazy. That's awesome.
Should we do a few more questions?
Yeah. Let's go to 7:30 my time. That'll have been an hour and a half.
Then is that all right with you, Eva?
Yeah, that's fine.
15 more
I'm
minutes?
going to put the pot roast in the pressure cooker, so we're good.
Nice.
So let's do this one. Spirit.
Have I written any heroines interested in anatomy? I should, except I'm really squeamish, like unbelievably squeamish. Like I like in high school, I took like a correspondence course so I wouldn't have to take biology and anatomy. Like I just like, and the correspondence course was botany, because I was like, oh my God, I can't like, and that hasn't gotten much better since then. Like this isn't like in The Witcher. I'm like, when we were watching The Witcher, I'm just like, my husband will be like, don't look yet, don't look yet. No, don't look yet.
Wait till he's in the tub, then you can look.
Now they're barfing, and I don't like that. So don't look at that. So anatomy would necessitate me actually looking at anatomy myself, and so I think that would be a little bit of an impediment. I would love, the development of the science of anatomy is fascinating, and the grave robbers who would procure the corpses so people could study, because there wasn't this sort of like, it was illegal, and all of this just is super fascinating. But like I'd be so grossed out just like on a personal level. But I find it fascinating, and I would love to see a heroine. We've had I know there's heroines who have been doctors in the 19th century.
I was gonna ask that because yeah. That is funny because that's true. I mean, if you were going to write it accurately, you would have to research. Didn't think about that.
Some of those early medical practices, today even, but like science has got a really problematic history and does a lot of things that are
questionable.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good word for it. That are questionable morally. And so it's like you want to sort of like walk this line. But, there's a way that, you can bring health and science to people without necessarily having to, I actually have just started researching the history of optometry because I've been thinking about writing an optometrist heroine.
That'd be way cool. That's awesome.
Like, because one of the things that I think is fun is because I look at historical romances as still like a fantasy in some ways of things you can like improve and change. So, I'm sure that that's a thing too of like how much to go based off the research and how much to be like, yeah, but my heroine's going to be like just more than this, or like my hero's going to be just like more than this because this is also fictional and I can do it.
It's interesting because, the people have weaponized this notion of historical accuracy in terms of exclusion. And so that's been really fascinating. And as to kind of as a pushback against it, it's like, well, what are you calling historically accurate? There's so much to unpack with that. Who's telling you that this is historically inaccurate or whatever? But on top of that, it's like, but I'm writing for this. I've heard from other people, including Nathan Burgoyne, who's a LGBTQIA author, and he writes. I don't know if he writes romance, but he does write fiction, gay fiction. And he's like, but I'm writing for this audience. This is for them. So it's like, let's write to them, let's make it inclusive. Let's make the let's make this this world. Let's take away some of these things. Like, do we really have to parrot back racism? Like,
right.
to put racism in somebody's mouth, because maybe somebody might have said that at that point, but like, does your reader need to hear that? You know?
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm torn with that. I feel like I like a good mix of both, because I completely see that of like, you don't want to then be perpetuating what's happened. But I also love seeing characters who then like show how they stood up against it and fought it at the same time. So I can see how that would be a tough balance, because I agree, like, just because it was done in the sake of historical accuracy, why are you perpetuating it?
Right.
But I also love seeing characters fight against it. Like Her Night with the Duke, absolutely loved that book for how the character was like, you're not going to put me in the box you're trying to put me in by saying things. And so I really that, but
right. And it's like narratives of what's the word I'm looking for, of people pushing back. We've suppressed those. You know, there are always people advocating for equality, or, you know, or so it's like, if it was this continuous like oppressive, like, then nothing would have changed, or like we would be making these strides. And so it's like, and we have to also recognize the labor being done by communities or suffering from that, or like having to deal with that. So it's like, we know that people fought back and pushed back against that. I mean, for fuck's sake, women can vote, right? And not just white women, hopefully. You know what I mean? So it's like this whole notion of like unpacking.
To believe that no men supported it at all is just ignorant, because then it wouldn't have changed at all. Like, you know, there was men who wanted that for their women too. So yeah, absolutely.
Right.
This is a good one. You should do Dana's.
Dana?
Because I want to know the answer. Yeah.
Okay.
Other authors I'd love to collaborate with. Well, this is a tough question, Dana, because it's like, on one hand, I would love to collaborate with certain authors, and then on the other hand, they're so good that I'm like a little intimidated by it. You know, like one of my favorite historical romance authors is Julianne Long. I mean, she's a beautiful writer, just exquisite. And it's like, I'd love to collaborate with her, but it's like, but do I though? You know, like, this is kind of like, she's amazing, and I'm, you know, so it's
I don't know. I think you held up pretty damn good, in my personal opinion. So I think you could do it. But also, I just want you to write me in Duke smut like this. So, dirty girl. So just write me
on page for like Duke smut.
Yeah, I want it so much. Anyway, so that's kind of your answer, Julianne Long. I've just read one of her books recently. I really liked her.
Sarah McLean, I mean, and Adriana, I want to see so much more inclusive historical romance, and I love that she did that. And so I'm just, you know, really, Olivia Waite, I mean, she's a gorgeous writer. Like, all of these authors would be pretty spectacular to work with, if they'd have me.
That's awesome.
I love that. That's awesome. Okay, should we do one more?
Sure.
So we know you have the Christmas book that you wrote, or the holiday book, but is there any other? I liked this question.
Yeah.
Wow, I would really love to see the whole Union of the Rake series be made into. I would love to see, because I don't know what the sensuality level is going to be for Bridgerton, but I want period drama that's fun and with a lot of hot sex in it. Okay. And also without like the scary repercussions that we see in like Outlander, where it's really dark. Right. I'm like, no, let's just have like let's have the ballroom and the fuck fest and all of that all together. Can we have all of that, please? Right. So I would really do that.
Yeah, I'm really that honestly, Eva, I've been saying that since they announced it, is I was like, I'm only support this if you put it in, like put it in. And so we're put it in. Right, like we're getting a trailer on Monday, and I'm hoping that they show us that it's gonna be sexy. They're telling me it's gonna be sexy, but I'm like, show me the skin, and I'll believe you. I get worked up. I know me.
You know, I know Julie Quinn is going to be watching with her family. So I wonder if she has children, but they're like in high school now, I think. So maybe it could be like, all right, yeah, kids. I mean, they know already.
If they read her book. Right. I mean, if they read her book.
Yeah.
Maybe not. I don't know if I'd read my mom's books if she. But
okay,
I mean, she dedicates every book to Paul, so maybe she's getting inspiration somewhere from Dr. Paul. But when she had a picture of her husband, she's like, "Guys, this is Dr. Paul." I was like, "Oh, it's Dr. Paul. You're almost as famous. Like you're almost as famous to me as Julia is after all these years, because all her books are dedicated to her husband, and I think that's adorable." But yeah,
right, one last question.
One last question. Oh, there you go.
Can I name my favorite Hallmark movies? Well, I adapted a Hallmark movie into a book, actually.
Did you
there
really?
was a book. Yeah, that was my first assignment for Hallmark. There's a movie called Like Cats and Dogs, and I adapted that into. I novelized it.
That's awesome.
I just watched A Christmas House, which I really enjoyed because it had a prominent same-sex couple in it who were in the process of adopting. I really enjoyed that. And on Saturday is a Hanukkah movie, and I'm really looking forward to that. And I've been talking about it a lot with other Jewish romance authors, and we really don't get to see a lot of positive portrayals of Jewish women in media. And so I would like to, especially in terms of like for movies, a lot of times they don't cast Jewish actresses to play the Jewish heroine. And I really would, you don't realize how much you miss something until you start to see it. And then like when I watched the preview for their Hanukkah film, I wish I could remember the title, but it's like Light Something Hanukkah. It started to make me cry because I was like, oh my God, like Fran Drescher was like one of the first like desirable Jewish women that I remember seeing on screen. And it's like, if you don't see that for a while, you just sort of get acclimated to thinking that you internalize that you're not lovable, you're not desirable. And so just see that on screen, that's really powerful, which is why I'm such a huge proponent of representation. We all need to see ourselves having our happily ever after on screen.
Right.
For sure. I love that so much.
Have you written any Jewish heroines yet or plans to? Or
that's a really good question because in Lady X's Cowboy, she's part Jewish. I think her grandmother is Jewish. But I really want to. And I know very little, especially about Jewish people in Regency England. And I have some books. And I think that's going to be on the slate as I really want to do that. I want to write historical. I know that like Rose Lerner and Felicia Grossman, they write historical Jewish heroines. And I want to kind of put that out there. So, the one of the things that's a little problematic is like, if I'm going to write about the nobility, which is so popular in historical romance, I don't want my heroines to convert. So, but you can't, there's this whole issue of like, can you be in Parliament if you're Jewish? And it's like, at that point, it was very, in the House of Lords.
Fuck that over. So.
Yeah. So I've got to kind of navigate that. But I'm starting to move a little away from the aristocracy anyway, so I'm just thinking about that.
Yeah. Well, it just.
I hope you do. I can't wait for that.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I asked. I was like, I would love to, because I've read one book with a Jewish couple, and it's a self-pub by Tamsin Parker. Have you? Taking Flight, and it's only a novella length, and I bawled my way through that book. It's a BDSM Jewish book, and it was amazing. Like, I'm gonna cry about it now, and I was like, oh my gosh, anyway, it was amazing.
Maybe we can do like there's priest, so why not have one for Jewish people?
I don't know. Her dom husband was probably one of the sexiest guys in a novella I've ever read, because they were both like, she was a divorcee and he was a widower, and it was amazing. So it was good.
I highlighted Nadia's question as our last one. I know I said only one more, but I thought this was such a good one.
That's a really good question, because there's I really want to see more own voices in historical romance. So, like, obviously, Kat Sebastian and Olivia Waite are writing LGBTQIA romance, which I think is, and I believe Courtney has as well, Courtney Milan. But like, to get to authors who need more attention, it's like, tell me, because I want, I go over to Women of Color in Romance pretty regularly, and I check out to see who, who's being published in the historical market, and I keep looking, and I know that they're out there, like Piper Hughley, and I think Denny Bryce is going to have a Harlem Renaissance book coming out next year called, I think, Wild Women Blues. I could have the title wrong. So I just like, more, please. That's is what I would like to see. So, get on the horn. If you find me on Twitter, I'm at Zoe_Archer. And if you find some, let me know, because I want to read them.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. We will.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things of like, I feel like I may be speaking specifically from my group of friends on BookTube, but I know that all of them that I've talked to, they would love to have that. I think it's also, there has
for sure,
people of color and people of diversity who want to write romances that we like want to read, right? Like I would absolutely read those, but I want to see that talent like fostered too. And I hope that like self-publishing can be an avenue for people in. Like I've read some self-published historicals that just blow my mind, like Scarlett Peckham and Nicola. And like I love their stories for how they are diverse in one way of like different like sexual things. So I hope that self-publishing can be an avenue for people who are like, well, maybe I wouldn't get picked up in one avenue, but like tell us like we'll find you. So
right. And I know Elizabeth Grace, she's written and she spells her name with a Y, not an I. Elizabeth Grace is written some like sort of kind of historical fantasy that's inclusive, and I know that she's been talking about going and writing like Tudor era, which I would love to see. So more please. And also like that speaks to my point. I don't know if you've read Would I Lie to the Duke yet. If you have,
right here.
But I made an executive decision because there's a male couple, and I initially was thinking that I was going to write an actual book for them, and then I did, upon thinking about it, I realized that it wasn't really my story to tell, because I don't identify as LGBTQIA, and I don't want to tell someone's story for them, and there's not a lot of that in historical romance, and so I included their HEA as a secondary narrative in Waiting for a Scot Like You, but I felt uncomfortable with the idea of me writing a point of view character from some lived experience that I had not had.
Right.
So that was a decision that I ultimately made. And fortunately, my editor supported that, because I had initially sold her on a 3-book series with a novella, and the novella was going to be their story. And then I'm like, you know what? After thinking about it and taking a lot of courses about how to write inclusively and critical, Lequette has a really amazing course about critical lens as applying to telling these narratives, telling these stories. And after taking that course, I was like, this is really, for me, not the choice that's right for me.
Right. That makes sense. I hope that people will be brave and go for it, because we definitely want it. Like I want it for sure. But I appreciate that of you being like, I don't want to speak for someone as well.
I want to see all forms of publishing, particularly traditional publishing, hiring inclusively when it comes to their editorial board. I want to see more agents. I'd love to, and I want to see people writing their own stories. And that's obviously, I'm not the gatekeeper, but it's like, I hope. And one of the beautiful things about self-publishing is that the gatekeepers are sort of taken away,
right,
to an extent, but the discoverability is always a problem. So, hopefully we can all work together to make this happen and see change, so that it isn't white, cis, heterosexual people writing the same stories over and over again.
Right. Right.
I love that. Thank you so much, Eva, for coming on we're so happy that you said yes, and so happy, so grateful for Nadia and getting us connected. That was such an awesome and amazing thing. We've just have thoroughly enjoyed reading your books, and just honestly, this conversation was just amazing. And thank you so much. I am so excited now to keep going into your backlist. I just started counting on a countess, and so
great.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate you guys having me on, and thank you, Dana. I hope. Yeah, it's like we vote with our wallets, so let's go out there and put the work in, and then when we read, then let people know, because that's how we can have people find out about other authors and stuff like that. Yes, thank you, Carrie. Happy Hanukkah to you.
Everybody's saying thank you in there.
Light menorah, and that's not a euphemism.
Everybody just loves you. This was fantastic. Just thank you so much for coming. It was great. Thanks so much, everyone, and
for having me. You can find me on the interwebs. I'm at on Twitter at Zoe_Archer, where I swear a lot, and I'm also occasionally on Instagram at ZoeArcher73, where I mostly post things that I bake and a few pictures of my cat.
Yeah.
So
also, I signed up for your newsletter, and I saved your cookie recipe. I was going to make them today, but
nice.
I haven't yet. But now I have them. So
I didn't add this instruction, but if you brown the butter before you add it to the cookie, it's even better. So that's my tip.
I'll do it.
But yeah, my newsletter, I do also some second epilogues. So if you sign up for that.
Yeah, it had second epilogues too. Yes, so I was grateful. So okay, we're gonna say goodbye and let Eva get on with her Hanukkah. Thank you so much, everyone. It was great.
Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it. Thanks for reading. Thanks for picking my cinnamon roll fake rake.
We adored him. He was just the best.
Very sweet and Joey. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.